This house has one the past 4 years, so it looks like we have an early front line.
Good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock. We're getting ready to start. First of all, thank each and every one of you for coming out on this cold evening. Thank you to all those online. As you all know me, I'm Lucy Diaz. I'm the chairperson of Community Board 13. To my right is Jeff Sanoff, my first vice chair. Continuing towards my right is Alan Newman and Michael Russo from our economic committee chairs, and Marianne Cleaver, the land use committee chair. I'm not running the meeting this evening. Marianne is going to run the meeting. But what I would like to tell everyone is that this gambling facility zoning text amendment, it is not solely for Coney Island. It is a citywide text amendment. There's been rumors that it's about Coney Island and only Coney Island. It is not a fact. So please, it's a citywide, both text amendments are citywide, which means all 59 community boards will have to vote on each text amendment. So I'm gonna pass it on to Marianne. I just wanted to make that clear, and please be respectful. People will receive 2 minutes to speak. Priority goes to the people in the room, and then we will go to those on Zoom. We must exit the building by 9 p.m. Totally appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna defer to, is this on?
You good?
I'm going to defer to city planning, who has a presentation that you're going to find extremely interesting. We would expect questions to be held to the end of the presentation, correct?
Yes.
All right, my name is Stephen Johnson. Glad to be out here in Coney Island. The last citywide text amendment I did for city planning, I came out here and presented at the hospital for bike parking, I think it was. So this gaming facility text amendment is a citywide text amendment, and it's to allow the use of a gaming facility in the city, because currently gaming facilities, which are casinos, racetracks, and their affiliated uses, are not permitted within the city. So the idea here is that this text amendment would allow the use in certain commercial districts, C4 through C8, M1, M2, M3, and that's just for the use, and it's strictly related to these 3 licenses. No other licenses in the future or in the past. It's these 3. So can I get to the next? Okay, great. So in 2013, there was a statewide referendum. New York State voters approved 7 casino licenses. Subsequent to that time, there have been 4 approved in or built in upstate New York, and then there's 3 left over. So at the beginning of this year, the entity called the Gaming Facilities Location Board was created by the Gaming Commission, the State Gaming Commission, and they put out a draft, an application, request for applications for the development of a gaming facility. And those are for the downstate region. And the downstate region includes Long Island, New York City, Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam. Now, like I said, they're not permitted in the city, so that's the entire purpose of this text amendment, is to allow the use in these particular districts. So that way, something called a community advisory committee can consider putting in a gaming facility if it's voted for and approved by the community advisory committee. So, and that's part of the new citing and a review process that was established by the state. And you can get this information on the Gaming Commission website. They have the request for applications, all the details of it, and what to do to apply. It's $1 million application fee, etc. So you have to be serious if you want to do it, if you want to apply. And in New York City, just the final bullet here, just to point out, because it's not a legally permitted use, there are none except for aqueducts, and aqueducts is on state property. That's why there is that facility in New York City. An Aqueduct has the racetrack and it has automated gaming. So there's no live people. It's not what most people think of as a real gaming facility because it's all automated. A lot of machines. Okay. And OTB, there was OTB was created. There's 6 regional OTBs. The one in New York City went bankrupt. No surprise. So here we are, slide 3. So this is what the Gaming Commission controls in New York State. It shows you the different facilities in the state, including what they call Indian gaming. And then if you look down here at the bottom, this is New York City. The 1 and the 1 is Aqueduct. And then number 2 is Belmont, which is in Elmont. And number 1 is a facility in Suffolk. And then Yonkers is number 5, Yonkers Raceway, MGM is there. So those are the ones in the general region for the city. Next slide, please. So part of what happened when they released this request for applications for gaming facilities is they created this new process. And within the new process is this community advisory committee, which will review and have public meetings and a public hearing on any proposal. So who are the members of this committee? It's your local council member, it's your BP, it's your state assembly member, your state senator, the New York City mayor, and the governor. So those are the people who will be voting on a gambling facility application at the CAC level, which is the neighborhood level, which are located wherever the proposed facility is. So Staten Island is not going to be reviewing anything in Manhattan, and the Bronx is not going to be reviewing anything in Queens. It's the local neighborhood people and the politicians who are going to be reviewing those and having a public process for those applications. So the Gaming Facilities Location Board has this criteria for how they're reviewing applications. It's obviously heavily focused on economic activity and job generation, as well as local siting impacts, that's environmental impacts, impacts to the neighborhood, et cetera, workforce enhancement and diversity framework. And at the bottom there, there's if you have any inquiries that you have related to the state process, there's a number there, and you can call me or you can send me an email and I can give you more information, or I think everybody can contact me or the community board for the information, but the number's up there and the person you can contact is up there. And also I wanted to say, I forgot to put my name and number on the slides. Again, it's Stephen Johnson and my email is sjohnson@planning.nyc.gov. Steve S. Johnson at planning.nyc.gov, or you can contact the Brooklyn Borough for city planning or the community board and I'll give you my information and I'll answer any of your questions and help you out. So the gaming facilities text amendment, here we have some of the bullets related to what it says and what it does. Like I said, it's to add the gaming facility use, which is an entertainment use in the city, into the zoning resolution for the first time. And this will allow gaming facilities, casinos, and any affiliated uses. The definition of a gaming facility, which was defined by the state, is the gambling facility and any related uses. And that includes hotels, parking, restaurants, any other amenities. I think some of the proposals have an amphitheater or a small stadium or a convention center, things like that. Those are all part of the gaming facility. So as I mentioned, it's commercial districts C4 through C8, M districts 1, 2, and 3. The second bullet really highlights that this is limited to the 3 licenses that were approved 10 years ago. So like I said, if there's in 10 years from now, if somebody wants to set up another referendum and the state voters approve it, or the gaming commission does something where they can approve another facility, the text amendment doesn't cover that. So we would have to do a whole new text amendment. That's why it's strictly tied to these 3 facilities. So you don't need to worry about any future prospect of a facility coming through this text amendment. I mentioned that it includes all the affiliated uses to the gaming facility. And as approved by the Gaming Commission at the time of the initial licensure,
we have to hurry up.
shall be deemed to have satisfied all applicable zoning regulations. So if it gets through the CAC process and is approved by a 2/3 vote, that will then go to the Gaming Facilities Location Board. and then they'll review the applications. And then if they pick 3, and one of them is in New York City, it shall be deemed complying with the ZR, the zoning resolution. Now, the CACs from New York City, they might not approve any of them. There might be 0 approvals for a gaming facility in New York City, or there's 9 current ones. They could approve all 9, and then the gaming city's location board would then have to review the 9 applications and decide which one is the most beneficial to the city. Okay, next slide, please. So the text amendment, like I said, does not apply to any future gaming licenses. The gaming facility application must be approved by the CAC, which is that 6-member board of the local politicians. And then the gaming facility will be compliant with zoning regulations. Now, one thing I wanted to highlight is the last bullet up there is that it doesn't apply to any future modifications. So for example, if a site in Queens is approved for a gaming facility, CAC approves it and the community reviews it and sees what that envelope, the bulk, the use, everything associated with that. If it's approved, gets one of the license, 10 years down the road, if we're like, oh, we decide we want a 500 space parking garage, it doesn't cover any future changes to the gaming facility. They have to go to city planning and get an approval. So any changes to an approved application has to come back through the city. Next slide, please. So these are the 9 current locations for proposals of a gaming facility. There's 5 in Manhattan, in community districts 4, 5, and 6, obviously in Midtown, high density area. 2 of the sites are in existing buildings. So they might have an easier time of getting through a process because they're already built, and there probably would be fewer impacts and need for mitigation because they've already had the building built. One is Saks, obviously, because it's up there, number 4. The one in the Bronx is at Ferry Point Park Golf Course. Bally's recently took over the lease at that site, and they're proposing a facility out there on parkland, as is number 7, Future Queens, which is right next to, I was gonna say Shea Stadium, but City Field.
What was Shea Stadium?
It's Shea Stadium parking lot. Number 8 is Aqueduct, and then number 9 is the one in Coney Island. That's being proposed by Thor Equities. Next slide, please. One thing I also wanted to mention is that approximately 3 to 5 of these proposals have other actions outside of this text amendment. So the ones that the purpose of the text amendment is there's multiple reasons for it. One is to get the use, make it permitted. The other is that the department can't review 9 applications of this stature within the time frame that the state has for the license. We can't get through all of them, do the environmental review on our own. And then if we even could do that, what if the CACs, so it would be a complete waste of time for us to do it. So what we're doing is the text amendment allows a number of these facilities to be approved as is.
They're free to be
But
taxed.
there's 3 to 5 that are not because they're on state, they have state property involved, they're on parkland, they have to be demapped, they have to get a zoning district onto the site. So like for the one in Willits and the one at Ferry Point, they're in parks. There is no zoning district. They don't even have a zoning district. So we have to demap the parkland. We have to give them a zoning district. So those are outside of the text amendment. And for those projects, those would be coming to the community boards in which they're located, the one in the Bronx, the one in Queens, and the one in Coney Island, which has separate actions that are ULURP actions. So you would be seeing those for the Coney Island project sometime in the first half of next year, once those projects get more developed. I think I've already mentioned all these issues. It only applies to these 3 licenses. And I think that about wraps it up. Is there another slide there? Is that it? That's the end.
Yes.
So I'm happy to take any questions or comments. And like I said, sjohnso@planning.nyc.gov, you can shoot me an email and I could, you can contact me that way.
Michael was chairperson of the Economic Development. One of the questions I have is
it's like, it's already a given that Yonkers and Aqueduct already had it. They're gonna receive one of these licenses. It's like a given. That's what everyone's told, that's what everyone's understood. But like you said, the one in Aqueduct's on state land, so they don't need the next one. And the one and Yonkers is outside of New York City, so.
That's right, for Yonkers. The one in Aqueduct, they still need to do a community advisory committee. So if the community says, and the local politicians say, yeah, we've had enough, we think it's fine with just the way it is with the automated facilities and the racetrack, they could vote to not approve it. Right, and you mentioned the two Aqueduct and Yonkers as a given. There has been a lot of discussion that they'll likely get them because they're already existing and they're probably easier for them amongst the community to get those approved, but they haven't received them. So I hear what you're saying and I agree to a certain extent, but those licenses have not been given out yet.
Question is, do they need a basically Aqueduct, do they need a CAC approval? Because it's our state land.
They do need the CAC approval, it's part of the process.
Thank you.
I asked, Fred.
I ask you again, if you have a question, do not just jump in there, raise your hand and Mariam will recognize you.
Fred, I saw Fred. Fred?
2 minutes.
It's a short question because I have many long ones and I'm gonna save those. But hi, Steve, thanks for coming out tonight. Could you say more about what specific elements would be subject to EULR with regard to the Coney Island application only?
So for the Coney Island application, it's still in the early stages. So we haven't completely decided on what process and what actions will be taken, other than it will be EULR. So it will be.
What's going to be the subject of EULR application?
Like I said, we haven't figured that out yet. So they want to take the sites that they
It makes
control.
a difference so that we know what's within the scope, so that we know what we can discuss in future meetings.
Sure. Well, once those are ironed out and figured out, we'll let you know.
So when do you expect that then?
So one of the issues that we're facing is that this is a state-led process. And if any of you have worked with the state before, it's not always super transparent. So they have not given a timeline of when things will start and when their deadlines are. We expect them to make an announcement soon. We are guessing that by the end of 2024, that most of these actions, extra actions would have to be completed, but that's not 100% certain yet.
Thank you.
So have to be soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming tonight. We had the meeting last night. It was very interesting. My question is, what are the criteria? Is there an application? Are people who are going to be chosen for the CAC just pick just like this, or do they have to have certain qualifications? Do they have to live in the community, et cetera, et cetera? That's very important so that the people don't feel that this CAC is stacked one way or the other.
So it's a rep from the mayor, rep from the governor, state assembly, your local state assembly member, your local state senator, your borough president, and your local city council member. So those are the people who are leading the CAC, and they're required to have public meetings and a public hearing related to any application that comes through.
That's who's picked by the electeds. But what is the criteria picking those people?
The criteria is that
Can
those
anybody-
titles that they have.
Well, I'm just saying, somebody from Queens can be in the Brooklyn CAC. I mean,
If you think your local city council member is gonna pick somebody from Staten Island or Queens to
well,
be
you
on the
don't,
CAC.
you don't know.
So I advise you then, if you don't have that level of trust between your local politicians.
It could be East New York, it could be any place in Brooklyn. That's what I'm trying to find. I wanna try-
So the answer is no criteria.
So there is no criteria.
There's no criteria other than your local politicians were elected to do something and I would assume would have somebody on the making decisions and reviewing process from the area where the gaming facility is located.
Thank you.
Jada?
You mentioned environmental review. Will this be going through SECRA or SECRA? Through the state or through the state?
It's, the gaming facilities are going through the state environmental review process.
Okay, so I assume once a site is selected and the CAC, that's when the environmental review will begin.
So the gaming applications, there's currently 2 stages. This is the state process that I'm describing. When they submit their application, there's certain things that are required for them to submit with their application. And that will include something related to environmental review. And then the second stage of the process, they have an ability to add supplemental material, more direct material, answer any questions and get more details about the environmental review. But that's the state process.
So we're going through a formal state SECRA or we're really not? We're going through the usual formal state environmental review?
I feel like I can't answer that question for the state, but they said that they're going through the state environmental quality review process. And then I don't know if they've actually put out guidelines as to exactly how they're going to be running it, but that's the environmental review process for each of the gaming facilities.
Thank you.
You know her name?
Hi, my name is Angela. So this amendment of zoning resolution is with power.
We can't hear you.
I cannot hear you.
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah.
So this amendment to the zoning resolution takes away power from the community board to shape our neighborhood. My question is, what is the process will take? What is the process of the approval of this amendment?
So this is a citywide text amendment. Text amendments are officially non-ULURP process, but we follow ULURP for text amendments. So the community board can send in their resolution recommending approval or disapproval or have issues they want to bring up. You know, like, for example, you could improve the idea that somewhere else it's okay to have a gaming facility. Maybe you don't want it here, or maybe you do want it here. And you could put that into your resolution. And then it goes to a public hearing at city planning. And then if it's approved by the commission, it goes to city council.
More questions?
Anyone else? Mr. Packer, you have a question? Anyone else? Anyone online? Anyone online has a question? Raise your hand, please.
Are you gonna be doing some substantive conversations with the community? You'll have more presentation on this only.
For the text amendment, was the only time I was planning on coming out. I can answer any questions. You can send me questions and I can answer those questions. I'm also available if you want to direct your questions to the board leadership and I'll answer those.
The gentleman in the back.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. The president. And one of the questions I have, these type of meetings that you're conducting tonight, will you be conducting at another place, the other Barber in Manhattan, and will you be facilitating the
Yes.
jobs? There's always a promise of jobs, right? So we know this is not specifically for Coney Island, so be relaxed. The thing is, you don't want to be promised something and it doesn't get delivered, right? So now you say this committee, the CAC, has to be approved by the council members and the.
No, they are the CAC.
They are the CAC.
And they review the application.
Right.
And the, I don't want to say what they could request, but, you know, for example, they could make a statement about labor unions, or they can make or a statement about parkland or parking, you know, or.
So my whole overall point is, these are things we want to see. If we're going to give approval for the things that you guys are asking for, the thing we want to see parking and crime is one of the bills I read that on standing jobs, one of my main things. Right, and one thing I could say during Hurricane Sandy, a little before that, for equities, they gave us opportunity. A lot of work, they tore down the buildings, they built the sugar. They had the zip line, they gave us work. They gave us work to actually let me do their lots. Community training. So I'm for it as far as improving the neighborhood. There's a lot of issues that we have. So once that CACUP is put together, when is that going to be a
So the CAC is a separate process from this zoning text amendment. There's no dates yet on when that'll start. We believe it's gonna start sometime in early 2024, or at least an announcement will be made saying when it will start in 20.
Residents be advised of these meetings, open meetings.
They're open meetings, they're supposed to have public meetings and public hearings, and city planning is gonna be also participating in some of those meetings too, because we want to have our voice heard at those meetings too, as the city agency on design issues, waterfront issues, or park issues, etc. So there's 9 current proposals. We had a slide up. There's a number, there's 5 in Manhattan. There's 1 in the Bronx at Ferry Point Park. There's 2 in Queens, Aqueduct and Willits, and then the 1 in Coney Island. If jobs are an issue, whatever your issues are for the zoning text amendment, the text amendment is just to get to a point where people can consider a proposal in their neighborhood. It doesn't approve a proposal for a gaming facility. It just makes it legal to have a gaming facility. Sure. So I think all those nice concerns, legitimate concerns you have should be in the community board resolution related to the text amendment, if everyone agrees to it.
City has any money. Migrants, broke. Government fine broke, let's pass it.
Any other,
Anyone who
oh, I'm
wants?
sorry, I have someone online and then we'll go to you and then I might, maybe our assemblyman wants to speak. Go ahead. iPhone? Mimi? Mimi, sorry.
Yes, yeah, my question is, this language is very, very specific, you're saying, and only related to this instance and these 3 licenses, and it's not broad and it will apply to nothing else, correct?
Yes.
iPhone? Okay, we're gonna move on. Anyone else that didn't have a chance, and then I'll do a second round. Greg then?
Thank you. Hi again. So, on the New York State Gaming Commission's website, it says, for any proposed gaming facility in New York City, all applicable zoning provisions must be subject to the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, ULURP, of New York City Charter, if such provisions would otherwise be applicable. That's the operative phrase there, which I guess you're operating under now. The determination on whether gaming is a permissible use or activity pursuant to ULURP cannot be overridden by mayoral zoning override, special permit process, or any other action or decision that preempts, circumvents, or supersedes the usual and customary local zoning process. So basically, for the state to, for the city to adopt the state's process, which includes this 6-member body, but does not include the host community, really circumvents the usual customary local zoning process, at least as far as what we're accustomed to going by Euler. And my concern, even if Coney Island does have a ULURPable action associated with it, there will be other applications that do not, and those communities will not have an opportunity. They will not have a seat at the table. They will not have an opportunity to talk about the impacts other than the same general meeting that everyone will be invited to. So my concern is that under the city's proposal, the community does not have a seat at the table. There will be no opportunity to negotiate the impacts of the proposal. And more importantly, there'll be no mechanism by which the community can hold government accountable, which we do have in the form of Euler. So is there anything that you can say to put our minds at ease that the community won't be forgotten about, that we will have an opportunity to speak out, be heard, and then ultimately hold government accountable?
So the citywide text amendment is our part in making it kosher with the zoning resolution. So if this is approved, then that makes a compliance with a gaming facility gets one of the licenses. Now, the ones that are outside, as I mentioned, there's a handful of them that need these other actions that are ULURP actions, but not all of them. But the idea here is that the CAC process is the public review process for the actual gaming facility. This is the public review process for the text amendment that city planning is putting down. So the CAC is really the citing and review process for the community to participate and speak out and give their comments to for the gaming facility proposal itself.
I understand that, but your proposal is effectively overriding what the customary zoning review process would be that our communities are accustomed to. You're basically telling us that we don't have a seat at the table as we would if this were subject to Euler. And again, I'm assuming that, there are some facilities that will not be subject to Euler. Those communities will not have a seat at the table as they would if it were following Euler.
So the ones that don't have additional ULURP actions at the city have to go through the CAC. So I think, what you're stating is totally fine. That's your opinion. But from our perspective, the CAC is the process for the public review of gaming facility applications. And I think those are the projects. I mean, I've already heard from politicians in Manhattan about projects, the Bronx. The new Bronx council members already made a ton of statements. This is very open. Everybody kind of hears what's going on. And I understand you're saying that each project's not going through a total ULURP for the gaming facility, but that's what the text amendment's for. And the state, as you know, can do their own things. I don't know if, do they have any general project plans out here before? The state has a process where they.
No, but I sat through the Barclays Center and that was quite a GPP.
That was a GPP, and that's what the state can do if they want to. But the CAC process is the public review process with your local politicians who are participating, and then with public hearings and public meetings related to each gaming facility.
Okay, I understand. I think we're just going in circles at this point. The city has its position and the community is not welcome at the table.
That's your position.
Anyone else? Michael Russo?
The answer to Craig is, we have to go through the CAC process for them to decide where this gonna go. If it does come to the next step, then we would have to go through community review or a type of review process. And in the community review, we can state that we need jobs, we need parking, we need things for the community to make the community better. We need better access for traveling in and for the Coney Island district. We need better access for the people to get in and out of Coney Island. We already had that disaster. So that would be in the next step. Today's process today is just to get this passed. So at least the city will have a chance. If we get it, we get it. We don't get it. It's for me, it'd be our loss. It'd be our loss. The city needs money, like Keith said. We are billions and billions of dollars in the hole. This would be a process for the city to be getting money that Lucy said in the other meeting. She goes to Atlantic City. She goes to all the other casinos. She doesn't want it in her backyard. I can agree with her. She doesn't want it. I understand that. But there are a lot of people who don't want to travel, and they would like to come to New York. They want to stay in New York. And Coney Island was the playground of the world. We have to make it again. We need to make it the playground of the world again.
Wait one second. I don't want this to be a debate about the casino tonight.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Just to be clear, I am not arguing for or against the casino.
And you
This is
weren't.
about the
And you
casino
weren't.
process, and I do believe the community deserves a seat at the table.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll be on the second one. What happened on the second one?
Anyone else?
to get
Michael, you're out of order. Anyone else?
Again.
Again. But I still love you. Anyone else? Okay, so now we're gonna take.
Can I speak? Can I
Go
speak?
ahead.
Can I speak?
Yes, ma'am, Sheila, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. The reason why, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I would just like to not make a question, but just a comment that people be open-minded to certain things. And the community should be involved with everything what's going on in the community, not people that live around the community, but people that live actually in the community to be involved in this process as well. And I'm just asking everybody to please have an open mind for the people that are in the community, because it seems to me that everyone can come to Coney Island and make money except for the people that live in Coney Island. So we need to really have an open mind about the people that live on the west side of Coney Island that, you know, would like to be involved in this process and know more about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Am I going to the screen, Eddie, or am I going to the gentleman in the back? Sir, go ahead, and then Ida again, and we're gonna wrap this up in 5 minutes because we have another presentation.
It's not as easy as I thought.
My question, I don't get somebody in a situation, it's been all stuff like that, but what would be the protection for the people that actually live right? Because obviously, as you know, rent, the prices of the stores, it's already kind of ridiculous. Your quarter cakes are now $1. So with the with this thing, not the sit on everything, like how with the protection for them. I mean, protection and the ball, yes, and protection, like in the sense of the rent should something like this value, something like that. I want to get both perspectives, because with it, it will bring foot traffic, and with the foot traffic, things like that, it will help the communities, because a lot of stores and in the community, I live in the community, I'm here. Which is a franchise, they can't even survive because there's not enough foot traffic. So I do understand that something like this will actually bring foot traffic year round. You understand? But with that, the effect would be everything goes up. Prices, everything skyrockets through. Will there be a protection clause or anything that will help residents keep their residency here? You know what I mean? That would be something I would want to kind of like maybe how does that work out?
So generally speaking, the casino use would not be focused on residential development. It'll be just commercial development. If there's any displacement, so many of these facilities are in parks. 2 of them are in parks. You know, the one in Coney Island is in the middle of the Coney Island area. And then I guess if I don't know what kind of protection impacts other than what's already on the books related to rent stabilization, rent increases, and those types of things that are already on the books. for help with rent. So,
Yeah, not so much helping with, but I'm just understand, you know, right now, we're everywhere across the city, is ridiculous. So if this is gonna create jobs, create opportunities, that would be the way of, you know, yes, realizing something, but that was just a question that I have.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I wanna see what does the future look like?
sure.
You know what I mean? What does, I mean, 'cause I understand, but what is down the line with that?
So in about 5 minutes, you'll be hearing about economic opportunities that the city is proposing, a very important project and a proposal. You guys can discuss those issues there, and then next year, we're having a housing opportunities project that's intended to increase housing and make housing a better situation for everyone in New York City, because I agree with you, it's New York City is ridiculous with the housing prices. So that's something more directly related to, I think, the issues.
I guess so once again, I would ask you a question, because something from, war, CAC is gonna be the councilman who speaks for us, the former president who represents us, right? It would happen. We would have to know the story, that's the only representation that it seems like we will have, like, so.
And the state assembly members.
We have 4 more people that need to ask questions, and then I'm gonna end it there, because as I said, we have another presentation. So I have Anthony, Ida, Erica, and the young lady on the screen, and that's it.
Pretty much, what Jeffrey told me, for the CAC, you said that there's no parameter there, it's set, so that the councilman, the elected official, place somebody in the community on this board, right? So there's no parameter. You pretty much saying you have to rely on trust on elected official. Now, is there any aim for maybe the community board or an entity to set those parameters so the local officials have to?
I think that's an excellent idea, and you could put that in your resolution. Sure, you could put that, and that's pertains to the gaming facilities. But I really want to say that I typically, almost 100% of the time, a local council member would put some, if they're not going to participate directly, but they put somebody on the CAC or board or the city planning commission who represents them and does things for them. That's the voice of the politician. So I understand the concern that, you know, you don't want to put somebody from, you know, Greenpoint, Williamsburg on the CAC for perhaps Coney Island, but they're really closely aligned, because if that person that the local politician puts on a board or the CAC doesn't do things that the council member wants, you know, they're out. They can't, they're really held accountable. You voted for the council member.
Anthony, just to answer your question, this week, next week actually, because tomorrow's. I'm gonna have the office write a letter to each elected official, highly recommending, because we could only recommend that they pick someone from the Coney Island community. And that it was mentioned here several times, so we will write a separate letter. Excuse me? There is no testimony. Yes. Yeah, but this has nothing to do with that right now. This is only about the zoning tax amendment. So as I said, I have 2 more and then 1 more online, and that's it. I just sign off, followed by Erica, followed by Anne.
Just a point of clarification. Sheila mentioned, you know, it's a Coney Island issue. There is no wall around Coney Island like there is around Seagate. Things do not occur in a vacuum. Things that impact our nearby communities impact us as well. And the issues that impact Coney Island, notably that everybody has complained about, the 4th of July, where people are afraid they can't get an ambulance. Those problems spill over into Brighton Beach too. And when there is the Mermaid Parade or the 4th of July or a hot summer weekend, we too become trapped. And by trapped, I've been even up on the boardwalk with former Councilman Chaim Deutsch on July 4th, And he was astonished, we were astonished to watch ambulances come down Ocean Parkway and then head the wrong way down Surf Avenue in traffic to get in here. So it's not like there's just, I get the whole thing, jobs and everything else. I mean, I understand it, believe me. Okay, and I'm not gonna rehash history here of what's been promised, but I'm not gonna rehash it. But things do not occur in a vacuum. And the impacts here, this is not a walled area, and the impacts here spill over into other areas as well. And that can't be ignored either.
Erica?
So I know I'm a little late. I want to know exactly where do you plan, what part of this land of Coney Island you're looking at? And with the CEC that you mentioned, why is there only one person instead of two? Shouldn't it be both sides of the way people feel, the community feels about this whole casino?
So the CACs have 6 members.
I get it, but why they can't each have two, each council person? Or let the community decide who should be the representative instead of the council?
I see what you mean.
I'll add that to my letter,
You could
saying
add
that
that.
maybe they could address the community to pick the person. I'll add that to my
The
letter.
state decided that process.
Right, the
city
state,
didn't do
right, the state decided the process, but I'll add that to my letter saying that if each elected official, we would respectfully ask if they would have a public meeting to, or if they can ask us to send them comments or direct them, how they would pick an individual. Thank you.
And your first question was about where it is. It's just where Thorpe controls their property. Towards the end of Stillwell. That's where they're
A
proposing.
lot of sugar. Let's move on. We have one more and that's it. And
Yes. My question, well, not question, my comment. I agree with Sheila, Craig, and I also agree with Ida. This is a situation that's going to affect Coney Island and Brighton Beach more than anyone else. And I believe even in the other communities, the other places where they're suggesting, I think it's totally adamant. They absolutely have to have someone who lives and breathes in that area to be a part of the CAC so that we have the right to decide what goes on and what is built in our neighborhood, in our community, not someone else. And I agree with, we all should be pushing to make sure that it is somebody from our community that is picked by our community. Thank you.
Yes, I'm on the committee.
thank you. So we're gonna have now motion. Marianne, thank you, sir. Thank you.
I am making a motion for Community Board 13 to agree to support the proposed citywide zoning text amendment to allow gaming facilities as permitted in certain commercial districts and manufacturing districts in the zoning resolution. This modification would allow a gaming facility licensed by the state and developed through a new state-defined siting process to be developed without regard to any potential conflict with the zoning resolution. This is a positive motion. If you're in favor of this, you're gonna vote yes. This is only the members of the committee, and I will call each one. And we'll start with the joint. We'll start with the land use. All right, starting with the land use. This is land use. Lucy?
No.
Okay. Sam? Okay, last, Angela?
No.
Michael Russo?
Yes.
Jeff Sanoff?
No.
Michael Silliman?
No.
Pat Singer,
Yes.
Sam,
No.
Marion, yes. Economic Development Committee. Chairman will go last. Queenie's here, right? Queenie?
Yeah. I'm here. How do you vote?
How do you vote, Queenie?
She abstains.
She abstains. Annette,
Yes.
Robin?
I'm okay.
Oh, sorry. How do you vote?
Yeah.
Alan,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Michael can't
I
get
can't
two
vote.
votes. You can't do two votes.
can do both. He's on both committees, though.
But he can't vote twice.
And one committee.
I can't vote twice either.
Put the votes together.
One, two, five, six, seven. How did you vote? You got 7 yeses. And we got 1 abstention. The ones that don't have anything. Yeah, she said no. If there's nothing there, it's a no. All right, so you were no, Angela was no. Jefferson, no. Michael Silverman was no, that's 4, 5. Pat Singer was yes. So if I counted this right, you've got 5 no's and 7 yeses. I got you no. That would be 6. 6 no's and 7 yeses. The vote is 6 no's and 7 yeses and 1 abstention. Okay, it was 7, ma'am? It was 7 yes, 1 abstain,
And 6 no's.
and 6 no. Motion carries for a yes. It will go to the full board on.
27th, I think.
You needed 8 to carry.
Mary, did you do this right?
What?
Let me.
That's such a majority, isn't it?
It's majority.
Simple majority vote.
As they go to the Congress.
Right, let's say.
They go to Congress. Oh, yeah.
I know. You want my color? Yes. You can't vote.
Oh.
If you know, vote. If you don't, it is all bad. Yes, that's one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 6. That's 6.
No, Michael,
He has a vote here. He's here. Yes, yeah.
Is a yes there, okay.
Okay.
They're doing the
So one there, two, three.
Three there, stop.
We're still gonna say, but the same.
You're gonna separate the vote out into the committees. You don't divide them.
Okay, so
Okay.
which one?
At the end of the day,
Okay, if we're separating the committees, Michael, which one does Michael Russo part of?
he's entitled to a vote each because he's on each committee. You're separating the committee.
We're separating the committees. All right, we're doing it again. Joint Economic Development and Land Use Committee, Alan Newman.
No, don't revote. You already had this.
Have,
You got it. Do the
she
minute.
doesn't have it correct. They say I don't have it correct. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lucy's on the vote.
No, no.
Lucy's on that, and I'm not sure if they were. Can you pull what Michael said?
Michael, so we're gonna step outside with them and then we're gonna continue. Let's go to the next presentation. Excuse us, we'll let you know what the vote is. So we'll save some time. Thank you.
You wanna come in?
Yeah.
Come on.
Stand.
You wanna go with the next one?
Alex.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucia Marquez Regan. I'm a borough planner at the Department of City Planning, and I'm joined by Matt Wiskevitz, the senior planner in economic and racial development, and Alex Summer, our director. This presentation will be about 17 minutes long with time for questions at the end. Thank you again for your time tonight, and I'll get started. City of Yes for Economic Opportunity is the second of 3 citywide initiatives by the Department of City Planning to update our city's zoning regulation for current times. The City of Yes for Economic Opportunity is intended specifically to support small businesses across the city. For the past year and a half, DCP has met with over 100 stakeholders throughout the city, such as small business owners, bids, chambers of commerce, and industrial service providers. This proposal has been shaped by that feedback. The city zoning articulates hundreds of defined uses or business activities and sorts them by zoning district. It regulates the activities you can do within a business, and it regulates how large a business can be. Because most of our zoning is more than 60 years old, they're outdated and sometimes confusing or counterproductive regulations. Our overarching mission for this initiative is to make sure that New York City zoning works for our economy and to create zoning rules that are simpler, more adaptable, and reflective of the modern needs of businesses in our neighborhoods. These are, again, citywide proposals to change our zoning, so they apply to all 5 boroughs and all 59 community districts. To frame our discussion of what this means for Community District 13, here is a recent economic snapshot. There are more than 41,000 jobs in CD 13 concentrated in institutional or education and healthcare sectors. This includes things like public schools, hospitals, doctors' offices, and services offered by in-home care providers. Private sector employment is at 114% of the pre-pandemic level, which is higher than both Brooklyn average economy recovery and the city's recovery overall. There are 13,000 storefronts in CD 13 that are located on neighborhood streets along commercial corridors, as you can see on the map on the right. Storefronts are occupied by things like goods, retail, located restaurants and services like salons, laundromats, accountants, and other professional services located on the ground floor. About 12% of the storefronts are vacant, a rate that is on par with Brooklyn average storefront vacancy and the city overall.
telling me to point out who I need.
These proposed zoning changes would make it easier to fill empty storefront spaces by giving businesses more certainty on where they can locate and what they can do with their business by removing outdated zoning restrictions that keep businesses from using storefront space. So the text amendment includes 18 proposals categorized by 4 main goals, and we'll walk through each of these and where they apply with applicability maps. We've circulated a printout with a summary of the 18 proposals. They were on the desk over there, so hopefully you grabbed one. Again, we're going to move through these pretty quickly, but we'll have time for questions at the end. So we'll go to the first goal. So goal 1 aims to make it easier for businesses to find space to grow by lifting zoning barriers so that businesses can locate closer to their customers. Next slide, please. Okay, proposal number 1. Our first proposal is to lift time limits to reactivating vacant storefronts. There are thousands of storefronts located in residential areas, which provide vital access to local goods and services, but many of these storefronts are not allowed under current zoning. Currently, if a storefront were to go vacant for more than 2 years in a residential area, there is no way in zoning where storefront could reoccupy this commercial space and it would remain vacant. This contributes to our city's storefront vacancy, and as a response, we are proposing to allow vacant storefronts in residential areas to be reoccupied without any time constraints. Proposal 2. Today, neighborhood retail corridors that are typically zoned C1 or C2 have while higher density and more centrally located business districts are typically zoned C4, 5, and 6. While there are other important differences between these districts, the zoning also sometimes makes arbitrary distinctions between which kinds of businesses are permitted in each area, sometimes enabling corridors where opposite sides of the street allow for different uses and different kinds of businesses. To simplify the distinction and treat similar zoning districts similarly, we are proposing to allow a consistent mix of businesses in C1 and C2 districts and a consistent mix of businesses in C4, 5, and 6 districts, removing barriers along corridors that are getting in the way of businesses being able to locate in a particular area. Proposal 3, currently zoning restricts most production activities to our city's industrial areas. There are kinds of clean production which produce minimal noise, emissions, and traffic that may be appropriate to locate in commercial areas and may benefit from being closer to local customers. Clean production examples include businesses like food and beverage making, apparel design, and jewelry making. These businesses would be subject to environmental standards to ensure that they're not negatively impacting their neighbors, but we think this proposal would allow New Yorkers to make and sell things in the same space. Next slide, please. Proposal 4, today, if a building tenant changes from office to makerspace or other manufacturing businesses, they may trigger additional loading docks. Adding additional loading areas might be too expensive or simply not feasible due to site constraints. We want to enable adaptive reuse of existing buildings by not requiring additional loading for a change of use. Next slide, please. Proposal 5, today zoning allows for many businesses to have a mix of, many buildings rather, to have a mix of residential and commercial uses, but zoning sometimes restricts businesses from being able to use upper floors, making it challenging to create mixed-use buildings containing residential and businesses. This proposal would remove barriers by permitting commercial and residential uses on the same floor in C1 and C2 districts and allowing commercial uses on the same floor or above in higher density C districts. When commercial uses are on the same floor or above, requirements could include 15-foot separation between uses, materials to attenuate any excessive noise to be installed, and if the commercial uses are above or at the same floor of residential, they would require separate entrances, elevators, and lifts. Proposal 6, many sections of the zoning have not been updated to reflect changes in business practices or the economy, and therefore include antiquated or confusing terms that are no longer applicable, which make it hard for small businesses to know where they can locate and know what they can do with their space. For example, zoning is very clear on where telegraph offices are allowed to locate, but it's unclear where cell phone repair shops can go. We are proposing to simplify and modernize the terms we use to classify businesses in zoning. Goal number 2 aims to support growing industries by reducing obstacles in zoning for emerging business types. We'll start with proposal 7. Today, zoning contains enclosure rules which make it unclear for businesses to determine which components of their business can operate indoors or outdoors. For example, if you're a florist, it is unclear how much of your business can occupy an outdoor portion of your lot. Additionally, today's zoning text is unclear where indoor agriculture uses and greenhouse uses are permitted, especially when they're enclosed. This proposal would clarify that indoor agriculture use such as vertical farming and hydroponic farms are permitted in commercial areas. This way food can grow closer to communities. Proposal 8. Currently, life science laboratories face confusing and outdated rules that slow the development of new facilities. We would like to make it clear that labs without potential for environmental hazard are appropriate in office settings or commercial districts. And we'd also like to expand the existing special permit that can be used so labs might be able to locate in the future to research centers like hospitals and universities. In 2017, City Council repealed the cabaret law, a discriminatory law created to restrict dancing and singing in restaurants. However, zoning has not been updated to reflect this. Today, zoning has confusing regulations on whether restaurants and bars can host live music, dancing, comedy shows, or open mic nights. We are simplifying the rules so that they're based on size of the venue rather than activity. Nightlife venues are still subject to permitting and enforcement by other agencies such as DOB, FDNY, and liquor licenses will still go through the community board. This proposal is not to encourage more nightlife, but to make the regulations easier to understand and follow and reflect the change in policy made by our elected officials. Proposal 10, currently zoning had proposal 10. Today zoning allows for a wide array of business types. Sorry.
I'm gonna do it. Okay, I know people want to leave after the first item, so first let me apologize. What happened here was that they were tallying the committees combined together. We had to do them separately. And there are certain people, even if you're on both committees, you have a vote on each committee. So what was being done before was that they would, if they combined it, then that other individual that belonged to the other committee was not allowed to vote and they lost that vote. So we went outside, we tallied up each individual committees and Jeff will announce it now. And the final vote will be at the December 27th full board meeting, which will be at 7 p.m. at St. Paul's on West A Street. Contact the office if you have any questions on that. Sorry to interrupt you, but I know some people want to leave. So Jeff is gonna announce this and then we're gonna move on. Thank you everyone once again.
Okay, the Economic Committee, there were 4 yeses, 2 nos, 1 abstention, motion passed, the quorum was met.
How many yes did you say?
Excuse me?
How many?
The Economic Committee. The Land Use Committee, there were 3 yes, 5 no, motion was denied, the quorum was met.
Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Moving on. So you have the full board, which will be then, we'll decide if it goes through or not.
interested? Okay. Proposal 10, currently zoning has old definitions of amusement businesses and they do not consider or define experimental amusement businesses like trampoline parks, virtual skydiving, virtual reality, or arcades. And because there's no definition, it's unclear where these businesses can locate. We are proposing to revise the zoning text to ensure that these business types are used and included that can be located indoor, to a small scale in neighborhood commercial corridors and at a larger scale in more centrally located and higher density areas. These businesses will be allowed outdoors through a BSA special permit process. Proposal 11, today zoning allows for a wide range of home business types, including lawyers, jewelry makers, and music teachers. The pandemic changed how New Yorkers work from home, but zoning hasn't kept up, prohibiting specific occupations like barbers or interior decorators and other restrictions that hinder business creation. We know that a lot of small businesses start in the home, and we are proposing to enable entrepreneurship with updated rules for home-based businesses while keeping in place safeguards to ensure that they're being good neighbors. Goal number 3, our third goal is to foster vibrant neighborhoods by ensuring businesses contribute to active, safe, and walkable streets. Starts with proposal 12. Today, zoning does not comprehensively address streetscape design in commercial districts and instead is regulated to certain special districts. As such, there is nothing to regulate the condition of a long blank wall or drive-throughs that break up retail streets that create unpleasant or unsafe conditions for pedestrians walking past. We're proposing to create consistent ground floor design rules for all commercial districts. The proposal would define 3 tiers of commercial streets, A, B, and C, with stronger regulations for areas with greater pedestrian activity, tiers B and C, and a more relaxed for the city's auto-oriented corridors, tier A. Currently, zoning restricts auto installation, service, and repair businesses to mostly industrial areas, but includes exceptions for Class C covers and tire services. In practice, this means that some auto servicing and repair businesses are located on neighborhood commercial streets where vehicles can spill over onto the sidewalk, creating safety concerns for pedestrians. We are proposing to define auto servicing uses in the zoning resolution into 2 categories, light and heavy vehicle repair and maintenance. Heavy vehicle maintenance must be licensed by the state DMV and would continue to be allowed in manufacturing districts, while light repair could be located within C1 to C7 districts, but only after site approval from the Board of Standards and Appeals. Proposal 14, today zoning has outdated regulations that pertains to delivery activities, where most good deliveries occur on sidewalks and streets and not within empty storefronts or office buildings. To encourage the decentralized and more localized approach, we're proposing to create new types of zoning, a new use type in zoning called a micro distribution facility, which would allow these businesses to locate on a smaller scale in commercial areas and would encourage smaller and more sustainable methods of neighborhood delivery instead of trucks. Lastly, thank you for sticking with me. Goal number 4, our 4th and final goal is to create new opportunities for businesses to open by establishing new zoning tools that can boost job growth and business expansion. Today, large-scale residential developments, such as NYCHA campuses, are zoned as residence districts, meaning that retail, services, and maker spaces generally cannot locate here, placing residents at these developments further away from local goods and services. This proposal would create a CPC authorization to allow up to 15,000 square feet of commercial space in existing or new construction of a large-scale residential campus, giving residents greater access to necessities or the space to grow a new business. Proposal 16, currently zoning restricts local retail like bodegas to commercial areas. We'd like to provide an opportunity to allow for corner stores to be permitted in residential areas, but only if they provide access to local goods and services, be under 2,500 square feet, and locate close to an intersection and receive approval by the City Planning Commission. These proposals would be referred out to the community board for input and would go through environmental review. Proposal 17, today zoning sometimes limits size, location, and shape of new or growing businesses. For example, a clothing store might want to expand or occupy an empty second floor, but find the size limitations or location rules prevent them from doing so. The department is proposing to allow businesses to use a CPC process to waive some zoning on a case-by-case basis. Lastly, some of our zoning districts are obsolete, including our manufacturing districts. These were mapped in 1961 when suburban style industrial parks were envisioned for most of our city's industrial areas. Currently, districts are low density, have high parking requirements, and don't allow for the building shape to reflect the needs of today's industrial users. This proposal will create a range of new job-intensive zoning districts at a range of densities and heights that expand the zoning toolkit for future rezonings. Next slide, please. Here is a quick snapshot of these zoning districts. And we'll look at what this means for CE13 and the applicability maps. Next slide, please. Again, this is the summary of the proposals that there's copies of on the table to be able to follow along with. We'll go through applicability maps next. This presentation will be sent to the board for distribution after the presentation. Okay, applicability maps. Within, so this is all of the zoning districts and the proposals that apply to each of them within CB 13. That includes loading dock rules, simplifying use terms, a rationalized waiver process for BSA and CPC, and new types of zoning districts for job and intensive locations to be mapped in the future rezonings. We'll go through in depth each of the different districts. Okay, C1 district. So this is the C1, all the C1 districts in CB13. If you want to scroll up one more, these are the C2 districts. So the C1 and C2 districts in your area, here are the kinds of changes that are being proposed, removing arbitrary distinctions between C1 and C2 districts, allowing small scale clean production businesses up to 5,000 square feet, commercial uses to be allowed on the second floor of mixed use buildings, urban agriculture businesses could operate within a building, existing or new bars and restaurants would allow entertainment, experimental amusements and recreational businesses would be allowed up to 10,000 square feet, consistent commercial ground floor design rules, light motor vehicle repair maintenance shops would be allowed, but only after seeking approval from the BSA. Micro distribution facilities allowed up to 2,000 square feet, and businesses would have access to more rationalized waiver process to seek zoning modifications through the BSA or CPC, and new types of commercial manufacturing zoning districts would be added to the zoning toolkit so that private applicants or the city could use them again in future zones. CB13 does not have any C4 districts. C5 districts or C6 districts. These are all higher intensity commercial districts, which just to highlight some of the differences in case they're mapped in the future, include small scale production businesses up to 10,000 square feet rather than smaller 5,000 square feet. And micro distribution facilities would be allowed up to 5,000 square feet rather than 2,500 square feet. Those are some of the differences. For our districts, for residential districts in your area, these are the changes that are being proposed: to remove clocks on vacant storefronts to be reoccupied, allow a wider range of home-based businesses, availability of a new CPC authorization to allow up to 15,000 square feet of commercial space in existing or new construction large-scale residential campuses, and availability of a new CPC authorization to allow businesses to create a new corner store up to 2,500 square feet, again, located within 100 feet of an intersection, going through those processes. Districts, in your area. These are the kind of changes that are proposed. Again, businesses would have access to more rationalized waiver process and seek zoning modifications through the BSA or CPC and have some of the tools for new districts. And Coney Island has 3 special districts: the Special Coney Island District, Coney Island Mixed Use District, and Special Ocean Parkway District. While these proposals seek to make changes to underlying citywide zoning regulations to support small businesses, there are a few ways in which this proposal seeks to make our overlapping sets of rules with special purpose districts easier for businesses to understand, and they include aligning ground floor uses when they're inconsistent, simplify and modernize use terms, and enhance commercial corridors. Going quick over some resources and then we'll take questions. So the Department of City Planning received the community board's letters requesting additional time for consideration and responded to this request by stating, yes, we are accepting community board recommendations within the 60 days, but we'll accept every single recommendation we receive until the city planning vote in February. This means the boards will have all of January to compose their recommendation and to submit. We would like to give you some certainty by recommending that we receive that the recommendation is sent by January 31st at the latest. And then you can check out our website for a whole array of other tools. We know this is a really long proposal and there's a lot of different ways. We have the annotated zoning text, a detailed proposal description. You can see the economic snapshots of other community districts within our city and use group translation, among other things. And lastly, this is an optional worksheet for the community board to give us feedback regarding each proposal and whether the board supports or does not support the proposal, why, and any modifications that would be needed in order to support the proposal. Any questions? And then I'll open up for questions. Maybe if you want to pull back up the, oh, actually, sorry, could you scroll up one more time? Show. And then here as well, we'll be sending this along. This is just the goals and the proposals and where you can find it in our annotated zoning text, which is a long document. And then maybe if you could go to the summary of the, up again, this is just, yeah. So the summary of the proposals and open it up for questions. I don't know this. There, this one. And thank you for your time. I'm also joined by some of my colleagues as well who are more than happy to answer some questions as well. Alec Procrasting.
Let's look at the question. Just let's say a few words, but I apologize. I know that people wanted to ask some questions, but believe it or not, we still have one more menorah lighting in the area. So happy Hanukkah to everybody who's celebrating. To everybody else, you know, it's a festival of light. We have some darkness somewhere in the world, you know, so we need some light. So it's a good holiday. City planning representative said that the presentation would be for 17 minutes, right? So with all due respect, I'm just wondering if City Planning Commission can plan their own speeches at least. Sorry, I know it's a very hard question to ask or answer. Just a few words. It's a very long proposal. First, I'm going to say about City of Yes. The majority of that proposal is about creating businesses in residential areas. Am I right? No. Okay, all right. I'll leave it to the community to read the whole thing. Because the other day, I was speaking in the community for 10. I believe in your presence. It was very emotional. And I said to City of Yes, I'm saying no. Just because putting businesses in residential areas, I think it's absolutely irresponsible. Especially in the days when candy store can become
a cannabis store within 15 seconds. And then what are we gonna do with it? Was the Office of Cannabis Management that we have in this state. We have an Office of Cannabis Management, but we have no management of cannabis. That's our problem. This is about City of Yes. And just another few words, Madam Chair, if I'm permitted, on the casino and casino licenses and casino committee. First of all, I like to say to the community that my process as an assemblyman of choosing a person for the committee would be totally transparent. And it's going to be a person from Coney Island area. And it's going to be, because Coney Island area, Western Coney Island will be affected the most by the presence of, or non-presence of the casino. And it's going to be, like I said, very transparent, because I believe that the person who would represent me and through me represent the community at the committee would have to be an open-minded person. And I'll tell you why. I'm so happy to see my partner, my friend, City Councilman, is always a City Councilman, Dominic Amrekia Jr. Good seeing you. Good seeing you, man. You've done so much for this neighborhood. Thank you very much. And because I have Dominic here, I'm going to share something with you within another 3 minutes. 1998, I was a treasurer of the Community Board 13. Giuliani wanted, Mayor Giuliani, I'd rather say. Mayor Giuliani wanted a stadium. Community wanted an indoor recreation center. Sportsplex, which in the papers called indoor recreation center. Do you see a stadium? Do you see an indoor recreation center? I believe that's because community was always saying no, no, no to the stadium, and guess what? So community lost. Now community lost. Then rezoning situation, while we had Mayor Bloomberg. Community was saying no, no, no to rezoning. Rezoning has been done. Did community get anything out of it, Joe? So why I'm saying that we have to be open-minded, and why it's not a time to say yes or no to the casino, because we need to know what we want as a community if casino license is here. That's what the whole thing for the community is about. Honestly, I don't care how much the people will be making on Cornell. I just want to make sure that some of that profit would go to the Western Coney Island. We want vocational, we want trade school, we want some kind of mitigation of traffic. I have that crazy idea about the bridge between West 33rd and Well Parkway. I know this idea is crazy. Joe, this is your idea. Do you remember a lady named Alfie Davis?
Assemblyman, we have 30 minutes to finish. Wrap it up.
30 minutes. You're almost there. And you almost understand what I'm saying. We just need a lot of things here in Coney Island. And I don't want to see the community to lose again, like we lost in 1998 and 2009. That's all I'm saying. That's why I'm going to place a person, and it's going to be done in front of the whole community, but open-minded person who won't say yes or no, who will be listening to what's going on. Thank you all very much. City Planning Commission, I'm saying no to City of Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Assembly Member. Matt Waskevitz, I'm the lead planner on this project. I want to introduce myself And by way of introduction, show of hands, who here has run a small business? Who here has a close family or friend who's run a small business? All right, more than half the room. And I think it's pretty safe to say, really hard to start a business, operate a business, grow a business here in New York City. There's a lot of reasons why that's the case. The rent is really high, but the regulations, they're really tough. They're tough to navigate. We've been working for about 2 years now with all 5 chambers of commerce, with business improvement districts across the city, people whose day jobs are to help small businesses navigate city regulations. That's where these ideas came from. And from community meetings that we have with community boards across the city, trying to figure out ways to make our zoning more simple, more easy and adaptable and modern. And with respect to Community Board 10, most of these proposals don't even apply in residential areas. We can actually go back to that slide where it shows where the proposals apply. There are 18 proposals. There's a few that have applicability in residential areas. We can talk about those. But the vast majority of these proposals, they're designed to fill empty storefront space, empty office space. I'm not going to make promises on how much we can reduce vacancy because I don't want to give empty promises. But what I can guarantee is getting these rules more simple is going to make it easier. It's going to lower the cost to start a business and locate a business. So that's what this is all about. Welcome your questions.
Excuse me, Angela?
Thank you so much. I think I will be fine. Thank you so much for your proposal. That was a lot of work, and it's not the first time I'm listening to it. I did my homework, so it's amazing. But what kind of takes me back is you keep mentioning 1961. I don't know how many people were born before 1961, but you keep saying outdated, archaic, confusing in terms of the document. Well, it's not that old. I know that young people, but it's not that old. I know a document that was originated in 1787, still in use with amendments. Now, zoning resolutions are being amended every year. It's not archaic. It's living and breathing mechanism, and it's keep modifying. Yes, there are some terms of typewriter. Okay, let's update it. Let's include cannabis shops. Let's include, I don't know, Bitcoin mining. Let's use those terms. But what you're proposing to do, what you're saying collapsing together, but you're upzoning. So we have a few residential commerce corridors, right, with the C1. That's basically what we have. Mermaid Avenue, Brighton Beach Avenue. This is your neighborhood shops. What is it? The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? So this is where you walk in with your kids, with your family, and you shop it. You're proposing to get C2, which is for people who don't know C2. C2 is a Margarita Island. It's a surf area. So now we're getting motels, we're having, what is it, clubs, have a lot of gigs. And then you're going a bit further, I mean, not you personally, I'm saying people who work on it. They're going even further, they say, oh, let's bring light manufacturing. Oh, how about auto repair? And we make it light, but even light auto repair, we require the car drive in. It will be paint, it will be noise. So here's my shopping experience will be completely different. And then so that's what happening there. And then you say in dark stores, let's do the distribution center. Distribution center, it's a dark store. That's where, I don't know, Amazon shopping comes and big trucks load in, unload it, and it's going to do the distribution. I personally have a problem with this, but to not take a lot of time, another thing that's proposal, I think 11, that's home run businesses. I'm not personally looking forward to my neighbor, and I'm living in an apartment building. I'm looking forward to my neighbor open barbershop. I'm not against him cutting the hair with his friends, but open the barber shop with 3 employees, with the fumes, with the traffic started to go on my floor. That's creating business, and you open to vet stores of any kind, so with no restriction to the businesses, and you're saying common sense. So who will be accountable to keep it online? Because I don't see a possibility. As of now, we can restrict commercial garbage to be disposed properly. So I don't know who will be taking care of all of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There's a lot in there. I'll try and touch on some aspects, but make sure we get to other questions. So starting with what needs updating. We update the zoning resolution all the time. There are many ways in which we do that. We do that through local rezonings, but we also do that through citywide text amendments, and it is a living document. It's been changed a lot since 1961, but there's still many parts of it that are untouched. So we do have those outdated uses, but at the same time, a lot of new business types struggle to know where they can locate. And let's talk about what that looks like practically speaking. If you're a type of business, let's say you're virtual reality. You might be a local service, you might be retail, but it's not in the zoning resolution. You can look for hundreds and hundreds of pages, you won't find the terms virtual reality because it didn't exist 60 years ago. So today, you might have to hire a land use attorney, you might have to go to the Department of Buildings, spend 6 months or more in a costly process to get a document that says, oh yeah, you are a local retail store. You can locate in any storefront space. Now, some businesses, they might know this system, and so they might know they have to do that, and they won't sign their lease, but it costs time and money. But others, they will sign that lease. And then what happens a lot is they sign that lease, and then 6 months, a year goes by, DOB or someone else comes knocking, and they discover they actually weren't allowed to be in that storefront space. Because the zoning, again, yes, we updated, but these parts have not been updated. So that's what we're trying to do. When it comes to C1 and C2 districts, yeah, there are differences today. C1 districts back in 1961, retail looked a lot different. You did go to your candlestick maker and your baker, and they were right next to each other. But both in this district, across the city, across the country, dry goods retail is going down and down and down and down. And the restrictions on what you can put in storefront space in C1 districts, it's really tough sometimes. So that's why we looked at the other kinds of businesses that are appropriate for storefront space that you find in many parts of this district in the same places, in the same storefronts, and allowing for a wider diversity of business types to decrease the vacancy of those C1 districts. So that's that proposal.
I just want to remind everyone, they're coming back to us in January, and we have a time limit of 9 PM.
I'll keep it short.
I'm gonna go to the next question.
Okay.
Rosemary? Yeah, Roseanne, sorry, Roseanne. Angela, really? Angela.
Invite a speaker.
What I'm concerned about, you're talking about different codes for different districts. Now, you're talking about a light auto repair shop. And that, if I have a house and my neighbor next door repair cars in his driveway.
He can repair his car because it's his car,
Right.
but he cannot start a business repairing cars in his driveway.
Could light repair?
Yes, even light repairs.
So where would this person that wanted to start a business for light repairs go with this?
Right. In zoning today, in C2 districts, you can have auto repair, light auto repair as of right. You don't have to go through any process. You can just do it. That is the zoning today in a C2 district. But when we're looking at all the things that we could add into C1 districts as part of the proposal I was just talking about, we realized this could create a conflict. Because in our commercial overlays in our neighborhood commercial districts, auto repair often spills out into sidewalks, into streets. It creates conflicts. It can lead to safety concerns. It can lead to just half repaired cars sitting in the sidewalk. And what we're saying as part of this proposal is in the C2 districts and in the C1 districts, so the places where it's allowed as a right, no longer is it allowed as a right. In the C1 districts, where it's not allowed at all today, there is that path, but you have to go before the community board first. And there would be a board of standards and appeals process to ensure that if auto repair is to locate, that activity is contained within the lot itself, isn't going to spill out into the sidewalk, isn't going to spill out in the street and create those conflicts that we're seeing. So that's what we're doing with auto repair. We think it's a good balance because auto repair businesses are really important. There's a lot of cars in the city. A lot of people don't own cars, but a lot of people do, and they need places to repair them. Auto repair is appropriate in industrial areas, but if it's going to locate in a neighborhood commercial street, we need some safeguards around it.
Why this is very important, I'd like you to limit your responses, because I want the few people that are here to have questions, to ask the questions. And then, as I said, we will meet again in January, but let's try to limit it as quickly as possible. I have one online, anyone on this side? Okay, so I have a few over here, Ida, Michael Silverman, Craig, and then Pat, and then that's it.
One question and one true story. I noticed that you have light manufacturing that would be permitted on the second floor of residential buildings under this new proposal, is that correct?
Under very certain circumstances, but yes.
Okay, well, printing is considered light manufacturing. It is currently located to other areas. Printing involves noise, it involves chemicals. In some cases, you're limited to what chemicals you can put down a sewage system, a public sanitary sewer. I would be concerned about someone having a printing shop above my head. I would be concerned about someone, I don't know about dental labs, the people who make, your plates and your false teeth and everything. Okay, certain dental labs use heavy metals, and these heavy metals persist in plumbing. So there are all of these little, and now I'm gonna tell you a true story. Residential street, someone buys a house in the middle of the street, and they decide they're gonna be storing things for a recycling business. They put up a big fence in the front, this is a true story, and the second floor neighbors on either side look down and they see refrigerators and stoves and thousands of plastic bottles. They call buildings, they call the fire department. Nobody can see what's going on because there's this big fence. In addition, rainwater starts pooling, and it's the summer. And when you have standing water, you get mosquitoes, and when you get mosquitoes, you get West Nile virus. And the people on either side of this impromptu recycling center, in addition to all the traffic and the noise goes back, they ended up in the hospital. So there are all of these, when you have an area where people live and where people spend many, many hours of the day, and now you're bringing in all of the hair salons. I mean, you use permanent solutions. These acrylic nails. You're going to have a kid with asthma and living in the same building and all up with the fumes coming into your home from the woman who's running a nail salon or a beauty salon and relaxing hair and firming hair. I mean, it's not just the business. There are all these things associated with these businesses that have to be worked out.
I thank you. Again, I am sorry that I'm saying the limited time. I once again want to apologize with the 9 o'clock stopping, but we couldn't find another location that would fit this amount of people. So again, I totally apologize. And if anyone can hold their questions to January, if not, let's try to limit them. I think I said Michael, Craig, and then Pat, if I'm correct. Michael Silverman.
Real quick question, item number 11. Home-based businesses. Are we talking about homes, rental, condos, co-op?
So I can answer both questions and I can do it quickly. Our zoning today allows for you to operate a business within your home, but there are a lot of safeguards built into the zoning for that activity. So you have to be a home first, you have to live in it. You can't just rent it out to someone else. You can't be a retail space, so you can't sell something you didn't make yourself. You can make your own jewelry and sell it from your home, but you can't sell someone else's jewelry. There are strict environmental rules around noise, fumes, odor, dust, a whole bunch of other things considered nuisances. If you're in a rental and you are creating a nuisance, you can be evicted through that process. So the zoning today lays out a lot of safeguards around home-based businesses, but what we're doing is looking at the types of businesses that are not allowed. And so these include things like interior designers, stockbrokers, and barbers, and saying that those safeguards that we have in place, those are sufficient. We don't need to say that someone can't cut their hair in their home. And the reality is, a lot of people do it today. And so we want to reflect in our zoning what's happening in the real world. Go ahead.
Just to follow up though, there are condo rules and co-op rules.
That's right.
That strictly prohibit, in many cases, any type of business. How do you get past that?
You don't. If you have a condo rule, a rule in NYCHA, a rule in any kind of housing and lease agreement that you can place limitations on a home-based business, those supersede the zoning.
Right. So sort of piggyback on what everyone else is saying, you described that the zoning resolution has built-in performance standards. And your approach is looking to potentially create new conflicts, which might create new nuisances, which is something that needs to be envisioned beyond the people who write the zoning resolution.
That's right.
In other words, the Department of Buildings is going to have to change their whole enforcement strategy to comply with the new performance standard. Can you say something about how you intend this to be enforced in the future?
Sure. We've been working with the Department of Buildings, with the Department of Environmental Protection, with agencies like NYCHA, with other city agencies and offices for 2 years now, making sure that as we're developing these proposals, they make interpretation easier. That's DOB's main job, is interpret and enforce the zoning. We want to make it easier to interpret and easier to enforce. And what DOB doesn't like is ambiguity. They like black and white. They like to be able to point to the rules and say, here's what you're doing that's right or wrong. And what the zoning has today is a lot of ambiguity. So when it comes to things like allowing for clean manufacturing, we built in clear rules around what is permitted and what is not. For example, every business that does production has to report to the city and the state whether they have hazardous substances. Businesses that have that reporting that's required are not allowed, end stop. That makes it very easy for DOB to say, you're not allowed. You can't issue that C of O, you can't begin your business. So that's just one example, but we've been working very closely to make sure this makes enforcement easier, not more difficult.
Thank you.
Pat?
Something I saw right in the jam, there is a store estimating 25 feet from it. They put like 10 booths, 10 little booths on one side, 10 on the other side, leaving aisle. At the end of the aisle, they left one booth. There's no access at that building. It's a buyer, and they don't know how to speak those two, but they're trying to do whatever. It's the fire trap.
Yeah, the zoning doesn't allow that. And so what you're describing should definitely be reported for some sort of violation, because what you're describing does not sound like it meets building or fire code for that matter.
What is the enforcement of these things?
Yeah.
So this is these things.
It would be the Department of Buildings for Brooklyn, but also you should let our DCP office know if something's going on. We can be good resources here, and 311.
Anyone on this end? Anyone else? Okay, Mark, online?
Thank you. I had a question. My concerns are in the businesses in residence. And two things, your requirement of right to know, for example, that's in 32-203, refers to C1, C2, and C4 to 7. I saw nothing in residential. Also, the separate access or separate elevator or separate stairs, likewise, did not apply. In reading the 667 page proposal that was not listed for residential. Going back to your presentation on 10:30 to
Sir, can I respond to those real quick?
you said
Okay, both instances you just mentioned, they're not allowed in residence districts, period. That's why they're not included, because what those proposals do not apply to residence districts.
right. But I can open up my jewelry making business, or I can open up my whatever in a residence, as long as it's 49.
Yeah, you can do that
employees.
today. The environmental rules of the home occupations regulations are what govern that kind of activity.
Right. But you're also changing from to 3 employees, so that's 4 people. And are you doing anything about bathrooms, ADA compliance, and the foot traffic that having that number of people in apartment 5A on the building across the street wants to start something in? And I just don't see that you in the text of the proposal. I heard it in your presentation to CBC on the 30th, but I don't see that actually written anywhere. You also had buildings can opt out, not just whatever. That's also not in the text of the proposed amendment. And I'll leave the rest for sending an email tomorrow with the rest of the questions.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue to say, we want your questions, feed them to the community board. They will come to our Brooklyn office, we'll respond for our next session.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you once again, meeting adjourned. Can I have a second?
Motion to close.
Motion closed, thank you, see you all in January. No, wait. December 27th for the full board, thank you.